Day 8 of the 6 weeks challenge, and today was weigh-in day, so I've been doing it for a week. And as you saw in the last video, if you've watched it, if you haven't, I encourage you to go and have a quick look. This week I've lost 13 pounds in weight, so that's about 6 kilos of actual body weight lost this week, which I think by anyone's stretch of the imagination is pretty remarkable, and it just shows this program really works. Now I must instantly chuck something in there and say that you're not going to lose that much every week. It's just not possible. The first week is always, in my experience, absolutely crazy, and then it starts to settle into between 3 and 5 pounds of pure fat loss a week after that, which is just fantastic. So anyway, let's talk about the 13 pounds, the 6 kilos, and just explain why that's happened. Well, part of it is fat loss, and I'll talk about that in a sec, but the other part of it is using glycogen in the body. Now, glycogen is how the body stores the glucose, the sugars and things that you eat, the excess stuff, if it's not storing it as fat. And there's only a certain amount it can store in your muscles and in your liver, which is one of the key storage points. And after that, the glucose gets converted into fat in the body, which is why I've got my belly and my boobs, and why I put on weight, and why we all put on weight ultimately when we eat excess amounts of food, unless you have something like hypothyroidism or something else. But anyway, that's a completely different subject matter. So anyway, let's carry on talking about the matter at hand, which is glucose storage. And so basically, when this is stored in your body, there's a certain amount of grams that are stored. And actually, in order to store it, and in order for the glucose to be stored in your body, it also has to have water stored with it. So for every 100 grams that's actually stored, you will have 3 to 400 grams of water. So it's like a ratio of 3 or 4 to 1. And current science says that you've got about 100 grams of it stored in your liver. And for somebody of my weight, my size, so somebody who's bottoming out at about 90 to 100 kilos, just under 100 kilos when we started, you're looking at about another 400 grams stored in the musculoskeletal system. So not in your fat, in your muscles, essentially. So if you do the maths on that and say, well, I've got 500 grams stored in my body, and we know that there's a ratio of roughly 4 to 1, that means there'll be another 2,000 grams of water stored in there to actually balance out against the glucose that's stored in my system. So that makes 2.5 kilos. Now, this program strips that out of your body because you're not eating that many carbs, you're not eating that much at all, really. You're eating the right amount of food, but what you're doing is you're depleting those body reserves. So when you deplete those reserves, you naturally deplete the water as well, because as it's metabolized, the water goes out of your body too. So that means that 2.5 kilos, so 2,500 grams, or effectively, well, about 6 pounds of the weight that I've lost, 5.5 to 6 pounds of it, has been that glucose being stripped out of my body and the water going out of my body. So that accounts for 6 pounds, say, on the upper side of what's gone. So we're still left with 7 pounds of actual loss in a week. Now, in reality, with the calorie deficit I've been looking at, and in another video, I will talk about that and talk about how I calculate that and what I try and aim for every day. That would account for maybe 5 or 6 pounds of weight. Another thing will just be time of day. Maybe when I took the initial video, I was maybe a bit more hydrated, might have had some water, maybe there was some additional food in my belly. But what I'm doing from now on is it will always be the weigh-ins at the same time every single week, after I've done a little bit of training, and after I've had, or just before I've had a shower, and then the video afterwards to talk about it. And as I say, what I'm expecting now to lose between 3 to 5 pounds a week, so I average out about 4 pounds a week, although I do have, as I mentioned, some things coming up which are going to be little hurdles. Next Tuesday, got out with a client for the night in London, going to be going for a nice meal, lots of wine, so that's going to be a bit of a stickler. Then we've got Father's Day the Sunday after that, so going to go out for lunch, so that'll be not quite as strong a day. And then a couple of weeks later after that, I've got friends over, etc. So there's a couple of things that are going to perhaps make it so that some weeks it might be more like 2.5 pounds at worst, maybe 3 pounds at worst in that week. But again, I'm looking to average about 4 pounds a week from now onwards. Well, I'll say 3.5 conservatively, which will be for the next 5 weeks, 17.5 pounds, which will see me down to around 189 pounds by the end of the program. Now, if I don't hit that, I don't really mind because my healthy weight is around the 14 stone mark, so around 196. But it'll be interesting to just carry on to see how we go, get myself a bit leaner, and show you the program to the end and complete the challenge for these 6 weeks. Anyway, so that's my explanation about glucose and glycogen storage in the body and the weight loss and why it's so dramatic. When you try this program, I'm sure you will experience in the first week similar results, maybe not exactly the same, but you will see quite impressive ones, and ones which are very different to most other programs out there where they recommend you losing 1 to 2 pounds a week, which quite frankly is bullshit. It does not actually have any scientific bearing behind it. There's no evidence behind that whatsoever. Find me a paper, show me a paper that shows that is the most effective, efficient, long-term weight loss strategy, and I'll eat a shoe on this video, as long as it's got efficacy and it's fully backed up with human studies and done properly. I'm just putting all those caveats there so that I don't have to eat a shoe live, which I would do if somebody could actually prove that, but it's not a fact. It's absolute bollocks, and this proves it. It's this healthy, sustainable weight loss that you can do. The only difference between this and other programs is that rather than spending 6 months, 7 months, 8 months doing this, we spend 4 or 5, 6 weeks doing it, and we've lost the same amount of weight. And it just means that it's much more doable, much less willpower in inverted commas needed. And yeah, it's just a great way of doing it from my point of view, and hopefully from your point of view when you and if you ever try out this program. Anyway, it's been great chatting. I will see you tomorrow, where we're going to talk, I think tomorrow we're probably going to talk a little bit about insulin, which is a subject very close to my heart. If not, we'll maybe talk about calorie deficit. We'll have to see. These videos, as I say, are shot live. They're not really pre-planned. I just like to chat to you guys and talk to you about stuff that I've come across over my 30 years of yo-yo dieting up and down until I found the best way for me and hopefully for you to lose weight quickly, effectively, safely, and keep it off ultimately, and keep living your lifestyle, which is what we all want to do really. Anyway, it's been great chatting, and I'll speak to you tomorrow.